Welcome. I'm Matt at U.S. Frontier Miniatures. With this video, I will show you how to create this stone house. I call it the Delaware River Valley Stone House. You know, while the Swedish immigrants to the American frontier were known for their knowledge and experience in building log cabins, the German immigrants were known for their skills in building stone houses. They built many stone houses in the Delaware River Valley of colonial America during the 16 and the 1700s. Many of them are still standing today. This is a miniature representation of what was called a German colonial back then, made from locally gathered stone with its signature pent roof. I would like to show you how to make one of these for yourself. Hello, and welcome to my workshop and studio. Whether you're a beginner, an experienced miniature hobbyist, a model railroader, a mini wargamer, or just someone looking for a unique item to display on their mantle or bookcase, you certainly have come to the right place. My purpose with these videos is to help you create historically accurate miniatures. I craft all my models in O or 1/4 inch scale, but my methods can easily be adapted to other scales. No fancy power tools are needed. In fact, if you can handle common hand tools, you won't have any problem. Here at U.S. Frontier Miniatures, I strive to not only make a historically accurate model, but one that is as close to museum quality as possible. Now, with the techniques that I have learned over the years, along with the methods that I have developed, I'd like to show you how to achieve these same results. Let's get started. So let's start with the plans for this stone house. I call it the Delaware River Valley Stone House, circa 1760. You know, at U.S. Frontier Miniatures, I get my plans from both visiting historic houses and sites and doing a lot of research on my own. In this case, however, I had lived in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, for maybe 25, 30 years, about 20 years ago. And I lived very near to the Delaware River Valley and had seen a number of stone houses, both on the New Jersey side of the Delaware River and also on the Pennsylvania side. You know, the Delaware River runs from at its northernmost point in New York State down through New Jersey on its eastern shores and Pennsylvania on the western shores and all the way down into the Delaware, where it feeds into the Atlantic Ocean. And many people came here as settlers from Europe in the 16 and 1700s and the 1800s even, and built houses of stone in the Delaware River Valley. One of the other sources of research that I use is this book called American Homes by Lester Walker. It's kind of the Bible to me. It includes over 1,000 different American architectural styles. And what's nice about it is that it illustrates the various styles and has the dimensions of typical houses from different time periods. As you can see, here are stone houses from 1675 right through 1760 that were all built in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Delaware, all part of the Delaware River Valley. In fact, what the author says here is that the Delaware River Valley was settled by a blend of immigrants from Sweden, Finland, Switzerland, Scotland, Ireland, England, and the greatest number from Germany. And hence that's why he's labeled this house the German Colonial. So I've developed a set of plans based on the German Colonial and some of the dimensions that are laid out here, which is the nice part of the book, as I mentioned. I also included what's called a pent roof, which was part of one of the innovations of the Germans to protect the front entrance from the weather. So I've already laid out the plans, and you know, you can get a copy of them down below. But the front, again in 1/4 inch scale, will be 6 inches wide by 4 5/8 inches high. The green outline here is the pent roof that I mentioned, the overhang. And then we've got the back, which of course are the same dimensions. And in red here, I'm just indicating the windows and doors and the supplier that I get them from, called Tichy, T-I-C-H-Y. So here's the side model of the house, which will be 4 1/2 inches wide, or the equivalent of 18 feet wide. The front, by the way, with the 6 inches wide is the equivalent of 24 feet. And then on the left side of the house, we'll also have an outside chimney on here. So that'll be the same dimensions, and overall it'll be 7 inches high to the top of the peak of the roof. So for the main parts of the house, miniaturists and model railroaders use a variety of materials, anything from styrene to cardboard to foam core board to thin plywood. And I'll tell you the material I prefer. It's called gator board. It's a foam core type product, except that it has a 1/32 wood veneer on each side of it, which gives it a very solid structure. It comes in various thicknesses. I prefer the 3/16 inch thickness. And it comes in various colors too. Here's a brown piece. I happen to prefer it in black because I use a dark film to cover my windows to give that appearance of the inside of the house. So I prefer the black gator board. I'll leave a link below if you're interested in getting this board. I really recommend it. It can be cut with a box cutter or an X-Acto knife, so you don't need any complicated tools to cut it. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out the dimensions of the house. What I use is a white pencil here, and I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll go ahead and cut out the parts. What I also use is this ruler that has a 3/16 inch lip on it, which is for safety purposes. Your box cutter or X-Acto knife isn't as likely to come off there and cut your hands. I also wear a pair of gloves to protect my hands, because they do bruise easily at my age for some reason. Usually about 2 or 3 passes is enough to cut right through the gator board. Sometimes a few more. That's got it. Then I'll go on to cut the 2 pieces. This is 6 inches long. I'll go on to cut the pieces 4 by 5/8 of an inch. Next, we'll cut the pent overhang. If you recall from the plans we laid out, it's going to be, the front of the house is 6 inches, and it's going to be 1 1/8 inches long, or the equivalent of 4 1/2 feet an overhang. And instead of making it 6 inches across, since we will have the wood trim on each side, we'll make it 5 1/2 inches by 1 1/8 inches. So the material I use is styrene for this. This is a product called Plaststruck, and you can get it in most hobby shops and everything, and I'll have some links down below for all the materials that I recommend here. But it's 7 by 12, it comes in 7 by 12 inch sheets, different thicknesses. This thickness is 0.030 of an inch, and I would say that's the equivalent of about maybe 1 1/2 inches in real life. So that would be about the thickness of an overhang roof. So I use it for that reason, to get as true to scale as possible. Also, I can cut it with my knife, so it's easy to work with. You certainly can use other materials, you know, as we discussed before in terms of the parts of the house and everything. But the one thing you want to be cautious of is not to have something that's really not true or close to scale. So I've taken the liberty of taping down a piece on my mat here. I prefer to tape it down with painter's tape because it has a tendency to slide even as you're holding it. So this is the 7-inch length, and if you recall, we're going to make it 5 1/2, but by 1 1/8 inches. So I'm going to cut along the 13 line here, which will give me the 1 1/8 inches, and I squared everything up beforehand. Now the nice thing with working with styrene is that you don't have to cut it all the way through. Just a few good cuts into the material and you'll be able to break it off. Whoops, in this case it cut right through. So there's your 7-inch piece we'll go ahead now and do the 5.5 inches. And there we have it. Well, next we're going to cut out the support braces so we can assemble the house. They're glued in on the interior, kind of like this other house that I'm working on here. So we'll need 4 of them. Since our plans, as you recall, the front of the house is 4.58 inches high. And of course we'll want the support brace not quite as high, but close to it. I just like to leave a little room in case we have supporting braces on the roof when we put that together, or when we're putting the actual roof on. There's no need to cut it up even. So what we do want is them to be even on the floor. So instead of 4.4 5/8 inch, we'll make it 4.5 inches. What I use for that, as you saw in that house I'm working on, is a square piece of dowel. It's called 3/8 inch wood. And I happen to find this in a Home Depot. They don't cost a lot of money, and it's certainly less expensive than what you would pay online or in a hobby shop. And so I'm going to measure it out, and what I use to cut it, I have a little miter box and a razor saw. So I'll just go ahead and make the first 4.5 inch cut, and then I'll use that piece to measure against the other pieces. So I'll go ahead and do the rest of these, and we'll get back to the next step. Okay, well, here are the 4 pieces for the braces. We'll set them aside now. We're getting quite a collection here of pieces. And while we've got the miter box out, we'll go ahead and cut the pieces for our chimney. What I've done is, if you recall, it's an outside chimney, and I've added the measurements to the plan sheet here. We'll need 1 piece of this 5/8 inch square piece of wood, 7 3/4 inches high, and then we'll need 2 pieces, 2 3/4 inches high, and then we'll wind up gluing them together to form the basis of our chimney structure. So I'll go ahead and do that. One thing I always do with a piece of wood that I buy is check that it is square on the end, so it doesn't cause me any other problems down the road. Okay, so there are the 3 pieces. We'll glue them together later like this, and then we'll be able to put our clay around the structure and form our stones. So the chimney's going to be brick, and also we're going to have a stoop in the front of the house that's also going to be brick. And the stoop should measure at 1 inch in length, or the equivalent of 4 feet, and then 6/8 of an inch in depth, with the equivalent of 3 feet. So it'll be a 3x4 stoop. So I have some scrap balsa wood here, and I'm just going to find, I know I have a piece, here it is here in fact. It's already 1 inch wide, and I'll just measure off the 4/6 or the 6/8 rather, and cut it. Well, okay, now that we have our stoop, why don't we go ahead, continue to work with the balsa wood and make the 3 pent roof braces for the overhang. What we'll do for that is, as I say, use balsa wood again. Now, if you notice, they're going to be 5/8 of an inch high by 15/16 of an inch with a 30-degree angle. This is about the proper angle for a roof overhang. So for this, I'm going to use a miniature miter saw. It's made by Miterite. It says a Dobson product. But grab some a spare piece of wood now, and I'll measure out the first one, and I won't bore you with cutting the other 2. I can do that off video. So there's the part of the brace, or one of the braces. And it looks like we got the nice dent there, and we're already at about 15/16. So I'm going to go ahead and make the other 2 off camera, and then we'll come back for the next parts. Okay, well, I finished cutting the braces for the pent roof, so we'll go ahead and add them to the growing pile of parts for the stone house. And next, what we're going to do is cut out 2 roof pieces for the main roof. And for that, we'll go back to our styrene. As I mentioned earlier, when we did the pent roof, I used a product called Plastistruck, or Plastruck. And this time, however, instead of using the 0.030 thickness that we used for the pent roof, we're going to use 0.040 for the main 2 roof pieces. As you can see, they're thicker than the pent roof piece, and of course they're covering a larger area. So for this, I'll move these out of the way. We're going to cut 2 pieces 3.5 inches wide by 6 15/16 inches in length. That'll give us enough room to give us sufficient overhang both in the front and back and on each side of the stone house. So I'll go ahead and measure that, and we'll cut those up. The house is 2 small pieces that will eventually become slate for the sides of our chimney. I can show you on this Western ranch house that I've already have done. We're going to cut out 2 pieces of styrene that we're going to use for this. So I have a scrap box of styrene. We're going to use 0.030 again of an inch, thickness for the 2 pieces of slate, and we're going to make them 5/8 of an inch square. So I'll go ahead and do that. Well, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up below and also subscribe. That way you can be informed of my new projects. This stone house is a complete craft project from the top of the chimney to the display stand that it sits on. And by necessity, I've divided it into 6 parts according to the sequence that I built it in. So if you're going to build one of these for yourself, I certainly recommend that you view the other 5 videos. Don't forget to get a free copy of the house plan drawings below, plus the supplies list and a list of tools that I use. In case you can't get some of these items locally, I've also furnished links for you to obtain them. Lastly, I invite you to visit my Etsy shop, where you can see examples of other models that I've made. See the link below. Good luck with your own build, and if you have any questions, ask them in the comment section.